Hello, I'm Joseph W. Smith, call me Joe please, and welcome to this second edition of North Central Cinema. Now in the first edition, about 10 or 14 days ago, we did under the radar Christmas movies. This time around we're going to do New Year's Eve movies. Since that holiday is rapidly approaching, I'm going to give you 3 films that I think you might like to watch. Now, probably the first thing I ought to do is I ought to warn you away from the movie that is actually called New Year's Eve. And that's a 2011 film, and it is a disaster. It's got a good director, it has a good screenwriter, it has a dynamite cast, but it is an absolute catastrophe of a movie. It has a 7% at RottenTomatoes.com, so you don't have to take my word for it. Let's steer clear of that one. Now, of the 3 films that I've got for you, each of them has just a scene or two with New Year's Eve, but they're still great films. And the first one is a true under-the-radar film from 2016 called Carrie Pilby. It's about the title woman, that's P-I-L-B-Y, if you want to look it up. The title woman is a 19-year-old who's very, very smart, but very, very introverted. And so much so that she's having to get counseling. And we are not told right away what caused her introversion, because it doesn't seem like her true personality. But the counselor simply gives her a series of tasks to do. Make a friend, go on a date, read your favorite book, get a pet. There's about 10 of these things that she has to do, and she works through them. The cast makes it work. A British actress named Belle Powley plays Carrie. Nathan Lane, who's always fun to watch, plays the counselor. Gabriel Byrne plays Carrie's father. Jason Ritter makes an appearance. He is a fairly well-known actor nowadays. He is the son of the late John Ritter and the grandson of the great singer and actor from the Golden Age, Tex Ritter. And then William Moseley makes an appearance toward the end of the film. He was in the Chronicles of Narnia. Carrie Pilby is somewhat downbeat till the closing scenes. The business with Gabriel Byrne and his line about borrowing books is just about perfect. And the final moment in the film is flawless. So Carrie Pilby, and incidentally, if you're watching the film, that beat-up old maroon paperback that Carrie pulls out of someone's pocket is J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. The film doesn't make that clear, but that sort of helps move the plot forward if you know that. Now, the second film is also under the radar, perhaps a bit less so. It's a movie called About Time from 2013. It is a rom-com about a guy that all the men in his family have the ability to travel backward in time. Sounds a little sketchy, but it works. What he does is, the main guy is, he uses this ability to make his world a better place and also to move his love life forward, particularly with a young lady he's fallen for, played by Rachel McAdams. The film also stars Bill Nighy. That's not the science guy, that's the older British actor whose name is spelled N-I-G-H-Y. If you like him, this is probably the best thing he's done. Margot Robbie has a small role, but the main actor in it is someone you might not have heard of, but have probably seen. That's Domhnall Gleeson. This is Domhnall Gleeson. You might not know his name, but you probably recognize his face, because between 2009 and 2018, in that 10-year period, Gleeson made 29 movies. It's incredible. He was in Brooklyn, Ex Machina, True Grit, 2 Harry Potter movies, 3 Star Wars movies. Here's another picture of him. So he has arrived, and he's very good in this film. But the chief reason for its success is a fellow named Richard Curtis. He is the director here. This is his first directorial effort. He is best known as a screenwriter. He wrote 4 Weddings and a Funeral and Love Actually. I'm personally not super fond of either of those films. Curtis also did Yesterday, the movie about the Beatles music, and he did a number of the Mr. Bean TV shows and a couple of the movies. So About Time is hurt-your-stomach funny in some scenes, but it also has a fantastic message about living every day to the fullest, just totally integrated into the storyline. A charming film, just about perfect. About Time, 2013. Now for our third and final movie, speaking about going back in time, you've probably noticed this sitting over here. That is what I consider the greatest rom-com ever made, When Harry Met Sally from 1989. This is not an under-the-radar movie. It was a huge hit. But if by chance you haven't seen it, it's about a guy and a girl who keep meeting over a 12-year period and trying to figure out whether or not men and women can be friends without romance and sexuality entering into it. And I'm not going to tell you what answer they find to that question. This is another perfect storm of a whole bunch of elements coming together. You have screenwriter Nora Ephron, who did Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail and Julie and Julia. You've got director Rob Reiner. Now, people in my generation still remember Rob Reiner from All in the Family, the 70s TV show where he played Meathead. But it's time to put that aside and think of Reiner as just a great director. He has made films in more genres than any other director I can think of. He did The Princess Bride. This is Spinal Tap, a mockumentary. A Few Good Men, Misery, Stand By Me, and this wonderful film. And then you've got a great cast. Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. You may have noticed in some of Crystal's roles there's a bit of a melancholy undertone to his performances, and they play that up here. Crystal helped with the script to make Harry a little bit funnier. And you may also have noticed that rom-coms, most good rom-coms have a secondary couple. Shakespeare's rom-coms have that. Jane Austen liked to do it. The Will Smith movie Hitch does it. There's even a secondary couple in Shrek. If you can think of that as a rom-com, I'll let you figure out who the secondary couple is. They usually get their relationship worked out first before the main couple. So in When Harry Met Sally, the secondary couple is played by Carrie Fisher, who needs no introduction, and Bruno Kirby, another actor you recognize because he made about 40 movies, but his name's not familiar. He's best known probably for The Godfather Part 2 and City Slickers. And in addition to screenplay, director, and cast, you also have a fantastic soundtrack. Harry Connick Jr., who was unknown at the time, won a Grammy for his soundtrack to this film, and it catapulted him to worldwide fame. Now, the climactic scene of When Harry Met Sally takes place on New Year's Eve. But if you've seen this film, when I said that, you probably were thinking of a different scene. You probably were thinking of the scene in the deli. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about what happens in that scene in case you have not viewed this film. But that masterpiece of a scene was a team effort. Crystal was complaining to Nora Ephron that he felt Harry had too much focus and too many of the good lines. Can we give some more important dialogue to Sally? Ephron said, why don't we talk about a certain female experience? And then Meg Ryan said, well, how about if instead of talking about it, I just demonstrate it? So you had all of them working together, and then the concluding line about having what she's having, Crystal came up with that on the spot, and that line is delivered by Rob Reiner's mother, Estelle. That's her only line in the film. So there's a great scene and a great movie. And just one final plug here. If you like Billy Crystal, and you feel that he's, like me, you feel he's sort of underused dramatically, dig up a recent film called Standing Up, Falling Down. Standing Up, Falling Down. I think that, for me, he doesn't have a lead, but I think that's his best film. Now, these are all rom-coms, and I suppose that's the way my mind and my heart goes, because my wife and I had our first date on New Year's Eve. That was going on 40 years ago. So in honor of that, I'd like to conclude this second edition of North Central PA with a quote from a great line from When Harry Met Sally. When you realize that you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. So Happy New Year to my wife and to all of you North Central Cinema viewers. I will see you again in a couple of weeks, and Happy New Year.
At UPMC, we're pioneering new ways to treat cancer, and we're working to prevent it. We're advancing new technology to look more closely at disease and helping you breathe easier. We perform the world's first heart-liver transplant, and we're experts at keeping your heart beating strong. We're a global team of more than 90,000, advancing care everywhere and delivering it closer to you. UPMC, life-changing medicine.